What happens when two strong personalities collide on live television, with millions watching, no script to follow, and nowhere to hide? Today, we're breaking down one of the most explosive moments in daytime talk show history. A clash that left audiences stunned and social media erupting. Before we get into it, make sure you hit that subscribe button and drop a comment below telling me whose side you're on in this debate. Because trust me, you're going to have an opinion by the end of this video. The tension in the studio was palpable from the moment the Hot Topics segment began. Alyssa Farah Griffin sat at the table, her posture straight, hands folded in front of her as the cameras came back from commercial break. Joy Behar, seated at the opposite end, had that look in her eye. The one regular viewers know all too well, the look that says she's ready to dig in and not let go. The topic on the table was political accountability, specifically regarding former administration officials and their responsibilities to speak out about what they witnessed. It was territory that Alyssa knew intimately, having served in that very world before transitioning to her role as a political commentator. What started as a standard panel discussion was about to become anything but standard. Joy leaned forward, her voice carrying that signature mix of humor and bite. "I just think it's interesting, Alyssa, how people who were part of the problem suddenly want to be part of the solution. It's very convenient, don't you think? You get out, write a book, maybe get a nice TV job, and then you want credit for speaking up. Where was all this moral clarity when it mattered?" Alyssa's jaw tightened slightly, but her voice remained measured. "Joy, I think that's an unfair characterization, and frankly, it's exactly the kind of thinking that prevents people from doing the right thing. If we punish everyone who has a change of heart or who finds the courage to speak up, even if it's later than we'd like, then we're basically telling people there's no point in ever coming forward." The other co-hosts exchanged glances, sensing the temperature rising. Whoopi tried to interject with a moderating comment, but Joy wasn't finished. "Courage." Joy's eyebrows shot up. "Courage is speaking up when your job is on the line, when you could lose everything. Courage is not waiting until you've already left, until it's safe, until there's a book deal on the table. That's called covering your bases, honey." Alyssa's face flushed, and viewers could see her grip tighten on the edge of the table. "You know what, Joy? I actually did risk something. I risked my relationships, my reputation, and circles I'd been part of for years. Do you know what it's like to be called a traitor by people you considered friends? Do you know what it's like to have your family members stop speaking to you because you decided to tell the truth?" Joy shook her head, a sardonic smile playing at her lips. "Oh, please. You landed on your feet pretty nicely, didn't you? You're sitting right here at this table. You've got a platform. You've got a voice. Forgive me if I don't throw a parade, because you decided to develop a conscience after the fact." The studio audience was dead silent. This wasn't the usual playful banter or spirited debate they were accustomed to. This was personal, and everyone could feel it. Sunny host tried to step in, her voice calm but firm. "I think what Joy is trying to say is that timing matters in these situations. And I think what Alyssa is saying is that we should encourage people to speak truth regardless of when they find the courage to do so. Both perspectives have merit." But Alyssa wasn't looking at Sunny. Her eyes were locked on Joy. "You know what I find fascinating? Joy, you sit here every day and talk about how we need to bring people together, how we need to heal divisions, how we need to find common ground. But the second someone actually tries to bridge that gap, someone who's been on the other side and is trying to do better, you tear them down. You want people to change, but you don't actually want to make room for them when they do." Joy's expression hardened. "Don't you dare try to make this about me. This is about accountability. This is about actions and consequences. You don't get to be part of an administration that did serious damage to this country and then just waltz into the resistance and expect everyone to welcome you with open arms. I never asked for open arms." Alyssa shot back, her voice rising slightly. "I asked for the opportunity to use my experience, my inside knowledge to help people understand what was happening and to prevent it from happening again. But apparently, according to you, that's not good enough. According to you, I should just shut up and disappear because I made the mistake of serving my country in a role you disagree with." Joy leaned back in her chair, crossing her arms. "Serving your country? Is that what we're calling it now? You served a person, Alyssa, not the country. And that person did tremendous damage. You were there for it. You saw it happening. And yes, I'm glad you eventually spoke up, but let's not rewrite history and pretend you're some kind of hero." The words hung in the air like a challenge. Alyssa's face had gone from flushed to pale, her hands now trembling slightly. When she spoke again, her voice was low but intense, every word deliberate. You have no idea what you're talking about. You sit here in your comfortable studio making judgments about situations you've never been in, about pressures you've never faced, about impossible choices you've never had to make. It's so easy to be righteous when you've never been tested. Joy, it's so easy to throw stones when you've built your entire career on being on the correct side of every issue after the fact. Joy's expression shifted from confrontational to something darker, more cutting. She uncrossed her arms and leaned forward again, pointing a finger across the table. Tested? You want to talk about being tested? I've been doing this for decades, sweetheart. I've been speaking truth to power when it actually costs something to do it. I've been on the right side of history because I did my homework, because I paid attention. Because I didn't sell out my values for a corner office in the West Wing. Alyssa's hands were now flat on the table, and her voice had taken on an edge that made even the crew members behind the cameras shift uncomfortably. You know what your problem is, Joy? You think everyone's journey has to look exactly like yours. You think everyone has to arrive at the same conclusions at the same time in the same way, or they're irredeemable. That's not how real life works. That's not how people work. Don't lecture me about how people work, Joy interrupted, her voice sharp. I know exactly how people work. I know how opportunism works. I know how reinvention works. I've watched it happen over and over again in this business and in politics. Someone does something questionable, realizes the winds are shifting, and suddenly they're born again. It's a tale as old as time. Whoopi tried again, more forcefully this time. Ladies, I think we need to know Whoopi. Let her finish, Alyssa said, her eyes never leaving Joy's face. I want to hear exactly what she thinks of me. I want her to say it all right here, right now, so we can stop pretending this is about principle and admit it's personal. Joy laughed, but there was no humor in it. Personal. Honey, I don't know you well enough for it to be personal. This is about pattern recognition. This is about calling out what I see. If that makes you uncomfortable, well, maybe that discomfort is trying to tell you something. What it's telling me, Alyssa said, her voice trembling now with barely controlled anger, is that you're not actually interested in progress or unity or any of the things you claim to care about. What you're interested in is being right, being superior, and making sure everyone knows it. You want people to change, but only if they gravel first. Only if they perform enough contrition for your satisfaction. Only if they let you stand on their backs while you take the moral high ground. The other co-hosts looked stricken. Sarah N. opened her mouth to say something, then closed it again. Anna Navarro was shaking her head slowly, clearly torn between both sides of the argument. Joy's face had gone red now, her voice rising. How dare you sit there and accuse me of grandstanding when that's exactly what you've been doing since you got here? Every chance you get, you remind everyone about your service, your sacrifice, your big brave moment of speaking up. You want credit for doing the bare minimum, for finally telling the truth after it was already too late to matter. It's never too late for the truth, Alyssa fired back. And the fact that you think it is says everything about why we're in the mess we're in. You've created an environment where people are too terrified to admit they were wrong, too scared to change their minds, too paralyzed by the fear of people like you tearing them apart to ever take that first step toward doing better. Joy stood up abruptly, her chair scraping against the floor. The suddenness of the movement caused a gasp from the audience. People like me. I'm trying to hold people accountable. I'm trying to make sure we don't just give everyone a pass because they decided to switch teams when it was convenient. Alyssa stood as well, matching Joy's energy. The other hosts remained seated, frozen in the moment, unsure whether to intervene or let it play out. You're not holding anyone accountable. Joy, you're settling scores. You're making examples. You're making sure everyone knows that if they don't toe your line, if they don't fit your narrative, they'll never be accepted. That's not accountability. That's a purity test, and it's destroying any chance we have at real dialogue. Purity test. Joy's voice cracked with incredul. Expecting people to have had a spine when it mattered is not a purity test. Expecting people to have put country over career is not unreasonable. And if that makes me unforgiving in your eyes, I can live with that. Alyssa's hands were shaking visibly now, her voice thick with emotion. You know what, Joy? I came to this table in good faith. I came here believing that this show was about different perspectives, about honest conversation, about working through our differences. But clearly I was wrong. Clearly, some people here aren't interested in conversation. They're interested in monologues. They're interested in having their prejudices confirmed, and anyone who challenges them gets destroyed. Joy moved out from behind the table, standing in the space between the desk and the audience. If you can't handle being challenged, maybe you're in the wrong business, Alyssa. Maybe you should go back to whatever comfortable bubble you came from where everyone agrees with you and no one asks hard questions. Hard questions. Alyssa's voice was almost a shout now. Something viewers had never heard from her before. You're not asking questions, Joy. You're making accusations. You're not interested in my answers because you've already decided what the truth is. You've already written the story, and I'm just the villain in your morality play. The tension was suffocating. The camera operators were getting shots they knew would be replayed thousands of times. The producers in the control room were frantically trying to decide whether to cut to commercial. The other co-hosts looked like they wanted to be anywhere else. Anna finally found her voice standing up and raising her hands. Okay, both of you need to take a breath. This is getting out of hand. We can disagree without it becoming no. Anna, Alyssa interrupted, her voice breaking slightly. This needs to be said. I'm tired of walking on eggshells. I'm tired of apologizing for my past while simultaneously being told my apologies aren't good enough. I'm tired of trying to build bridges while people like Joy are setting them on fire. Joy moved closer to the table, her finger pointing again. You want to know what I'm tired of? I'm tired of watching people who enabled authoritarian behavior get rehabilitated because they wrote an op-ed or gave an interview. I'm tired of watching accountability get watered down into meaninglessness. I'm tired of being told I should be grateful that people finally did the right thing when they could have done it all along. Alyssa's composure, which had been hanging by a thread, finally snapped. Her voice came out sharp and clear, cutting through the chaos. You want to talk about enabling? Let's talk about how you enable this toxic culture where nobody can ever grow, where nobody can ever learn, where making a mistake means you're permanently cast out. You want to know why politics is so polarized? Look in the mirror. Joy, you're part of the problem. The studio went completely silent. Even the audience seemed to collectively hold its breath. Joy's face went through a series of emotions, shock, anger, indignation, before settling into something cold and hard. I'm part of the problem. Joy's voice was dangerously quiet now. I've dedicated my entire career to fighting for what's right. I've used this platform to speak up for people who don't have a voice. I've called out injustice, corruption, and lies. And you, someone who was complicit in spreading those lies, someone who stood by while terrible things happened, you have the audacity to tell me I'm the problem. Alyssa grabbed her microphone from the table, her hands trembling as she unclipped it from her jacket. You know what the real tragedy is? Joy, you had a chance here to show people what grace looks like, what forgiveness looks like, what it means to welcome someone who's trying to do better. Instead, you chose to make an example out of me. You chose cruelty over compassion. And you did it on live television in front of millions of people. Joy stepped closer, her own voice rising again. Don't you dare try to make yourself the victim here. Don't you dare try to flip this script. You made choices, Alyssa. You made choices that had consequences for real people. And now you want everyone to just forget about that because you've decided to reinvent yourself. Alyssa threw her microphone down on the table with a clatter that echoed through the studio. The other hosts jumped. I'm not trying to make anyone forget anything, Joy. I've owned my mistakes. I've spoken about them publicly. I've tried to use my experience to prevent others from making the same errors in judgment. But apparently that's not enough for you. Nothing will ever be enough for you because you don't actually want redemption to be possible. You want permanent enemies because that's what keeps you relevant. The words hit like a slap. Joy's mouth opened then closed. Whoopi stood up now, her voice firm and commanding. Okay, that's enough. Both of you need to. But Alyssa was already moving. She pushed her chair back from the table, the sound harsh against the studio floor. You know what? I don't need this. I don't need to sit here and be attacked for trying to do the right thing. I don't need to be anyone's punching bag or a cautionary tale. Joy's voice followed her, sharp and unrelenting. Running away, Alyssa. That's very on brand for you, isn't it? When things get uncomfortable, when you're held accountable, you just walk away. Alyssa spun around, her face flushed with anger. And what might have been tears. I'm not running away from accountability, Joy. I'm running away from abuse. There's a difference. And the fact that you can't see it is exactly why I can't do this anymore. Sarah N finally spoke up, her voice urgent. Alyssa, please, let's just take a breath. Let's go to commercial. We can. No, Alyssa said firmly, shaking her head. I'm done. I'm done pretending this is a healthy work environment. I'm done pretending that what just happened is normal or acceptable. I'm done being told that I have to endure this because I once made mistakes. She started walking toward the side of the set, her heels clicking against the floor in the otherwise silent studio. Joy called after her. So, you're just going to leave in the middle of the show? Very professional, Alyssa. Really showing everyone how much you've grown. Alyssa stopped at the edge of the set and turned back one final time. Her voice was steady now, though her face was strewn with tears. You want to know what I've learned, Joy? I've learned that some people don't want you to change. They don't want you to grow or evolve or become better. They want you to stay exactly as you were so they can keep pointing at you, keep using you as an example, keep feeling superior. I've learned that offering an olive branch to someone who's already decided you're the enemy is pointless. And I've learned that I deserve better than this. Joy opened her mouth to respond, but Alyssa held up her hand. I'm not interested in whatever you're about to say. I've heard enough. The viewers have heard enough. And honestly, Joy, I hope you're proud of yourself. I hope this is exactly the moment you wanted. I hope when you go home tonight and replay this in your head, you feel good about how you treated someone who was trying their best. With that, she turned and walked off the set. The cameras followed her as she disappeared through the side door. The sound of it closing behind her punctuating the moment. The studio remained silent for several long seconds. The other hosts looking at each other at Joy at the audience, seemingly unsure of what to do next. Joy slowly returned to her seat, her face unreadable. Up cleared her throat, looking directly at the camera. We're going to take a quick break. We'll be right back. As the show cut to commercial, the control room erupted in chaos, producers shouting into headsets, trying to figure out what to do next, whether Alyssa would come back, how to handle the rest of the show. The other co-hosts immediately turned to Joy, their expressions a mix of shock, concern, and something that might have been reproach. Anna spoke first, her voice low but intense. Joy, what just happened? That was. But Joy cut her off, her voice tight. She made her choice. She could have stayed and finished the conversation like an adult, but she chose to make a scene instead. Sunny shook her head, her voice quiet. Joy, that wasn't just a conversation. That was an attack. You have to see that. The tension at the table was palpable, even with the cameras off. Sarah sat with her head in her hands. Whoopi was speaking rapidly to a producer who had rushed onto the set, and Joy sat alone in her chair, arms crossed. Her jaw set in a line that suggested she wasn't ready to back down or admit any wrongdoing. When the show came back from commercial, Alyssa's chair sat empty, a stark reminder of what had just transpired. Whoopi addressed it briefly professionally, saying that Alyssa had needed to step away and that they would continue with the show. But everyone watching knew what they had witnessed was more than just someone stepping away. It was a breaking point, a moment when the carefully managed facade of collegial disagreement had shattered completely. The rest of the show continued, but the energy was different, subdued, uncomfortable. The hosts moved through the remaining segments mechanically, the usual spark and chemistry noticeably absent, and that empty chair remained a silent testament to what happens when confrontation crosses the line into something more damaging, more personal, more irreparable. So there you have it, one of the most dramatic moments in daytime television history. A moment that raised serious questions about accountability, redemption, workplace dynamics, and how we treat people who are trying to change. Make sure you subscribe to the channel if you haven't already, and drop a comment below answering this question. Do you think Alyssa was right to walk off, or should she have stayed and continued the debate? I want to hear your thoughts on this explosive confrontation.